Hello again. This week the topic is federalism. Federalism is the shared relationship between the federal government and the states. Both the federal government and the states have sovereignty, meaning they have authority to govern, so that the federal government is responsible for all of the enumerated powers listed in the U.S. Constitution, where the states have what are called reserve powers. Reserve powers are the idea that whatever is not delegated to the federal government or denied to the states is reserved to the states. The Reserve Powers Clause is in the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. Now, there is no list of reserve powers. Basically, the understanding is that whatever is not already given to the federal government is reserved to the states. So the federal government, for example, takes care of national defense, interstate and foreign commerce. It has the ability to tax, declare war, raise and support armies and navies. And the states have responsibility for things like public safety, education, health and morality, and other issues that would come up at the state and local level. So most of the laws we live under in this country are actually state-level laws. But of course, in this class, we're focused primarily on the federal government because it is a class in American government. Now, the federal government has, over the last 75 to 80 years, taken on a number of responsibilities that used to be primarily the responsibility of the states. So, for example, in education is still a state responsibility. Most of the money for education in the states is state and local money. But in the last number of years, the federal government has provided aid to local schools around the country in the form of grants in order to help students in poor districts and those in other situations where the students are not performing well, helping them to do better, providing money for school lunch programs, and lots of other issues that would help students do better in school. And that's just one example of how the federal government has worked with the states to provide better services. Again, most of the responsibility of governing rests with the states. So as beginning with Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal and continuing under Lyndon Johnson in the 1960s with his Great Society programs, there has been an effort to have the federal government better work with the states to provide better health care, better education, better nutrition, better housing for people living in local communities. So please be aware that does not mean the states do not have their own powers. What it does mean is that the federal government has decided that there should be some basic standards for education in this country, some basic standards for healthcare, some basic standards for housing, and so forth. And one way to accomplish those goals is for the federal government to provide money to the states. When the federal government provides money to the states, it attaches conditions to the money. So it's not free money. The states do have to chip in some of their own money, and they do have to abide by the conditions. But these grants do allow the states to do a lot of things they would not be able to do otherwise. There's always a back and forth discussion about whether the federal government has taken on too much responsibility that would be better left to the states, or whether it's a good thing that the federal government does this since they have the resources and it does help the states better serve their citizens. Certainly we've seen this debate with regard to healthcare in recent years, but in a lot of other areas, including education. So just please keep that all in mind. Please make sure you read the pages very carefully before you attempt to answer the question for this week. And if you have any questions, please contact me. All right, have a great week.